Some stories aren't meant to stay silent. Some truths have to be spoken. This is where healing begins. This is where you find yourself again. Have you ever felt like you said everything right, explained yourself clearly, stayed calm, and somehow still ended up misunderstood? Like, how is it that we can talk for hours, text paragraphs, argue, explain, cry, and still feel unheard? That's when I started realizing something. Maybe communication isn't the problem. Maybe it's understanding. And there's a difference. Because you can hear someone, you can even repeat what they said, but that doesn't mean you felt them. And today, we're getting into that. Not just surface level, communicate better advice. But the real question, have you ever had someone truly listen to the real you? Everybody says communication is key, but let's be honest, people communicate all the time, in relationships, in friendships, with family, and still things fall apart. So if communication is happening, why are we still not getting each other? Because communication without understanding feels like talking to a wall that nods. You can say, I'm hurt, and they hear, you're being dramatic. You can say, I need reassurance, and they hear, you're too needy. You can say, I just want peace, and they hear, you're trying to control me. Same words, different interpretations. That's not a communication problem. That's an understanding problem. Have you ever been in a situation where you felt like, I am literally explaining my heart right now. Why don't you get it? Like you're choosing your words carefully, trying not to argue, trying to be calm, and somehow it turns into something else completely. Now you're defending yourself instead of being understood, and that's exhausting. Because at some point you start thinking, maybe I'm not saying it right. So you say it again, and again, and again. You reword it, you soften it, you explain it differently, until one day you go quiet. Not because you have nothing to say, but because you realize they're not trying to understand you. They're trying to respond to you. Let's really separate this. Hearing someone is passive. Understanding someone is intentional. Hearing is, I heard what you said. Understanding is, I see why you feel that way. Hearing stays on the surface. Understanding goes deeper into perspective, emotion, experience, because real understanding requires something most people struggle with, putting their ego to the side. Because sometimes understanding someone means admitting, even if I wouldn't feel that way, I get why you do. And a lot of people don't do that. They listen to respond, not to understand. They listen to defend, to correct, to win, not to connect. And that right there changes everything. So let me ask you something real. Have you ever had someone listen to the true you? Not the version of you that's easy to love. Not the strong version, not the I'm good version, but the raw you. The one that overthinks, the one that gets insecure sometimes, the one that needs reassurance, the one that's still healing. Have you ever sat there and felt completely safe being that person? Because they weren't judging you. They weren't fixing you. They weren't dismissing you. They were just understanding you. Because if you have, you know how rare that is. You know how peaceful that feels. You know how it quiets your mind instead of making you overthink more. And if you haven't, you probably know how lonely it feels, how frustrating it is to keep explaining yourself and still feel unseen, how heavy it feels to carry emotions no one seems to fully get. See, a lot of people don't lack communication skills. They lack emotional awareness. They hear your words, but they filter them through their own experiences, their own triggers, their own mindset, their own past. So instead of meeting you where you are, they pull you into where they are. And now the conversation isn't about understanding anymore. It's about perspective clashing. And sometimes people don't understand you because they've never taken the time to understand themselves. They don't know why they react the way they do. They don't know why certain things trigger them. They don't know how to sit with emotions, theirs or yours. And that's hard to accept because it makes you realize something uncomfortable. You can't force someone to see you, no matter how clearly you explain yourself, no matter how calm you are, no matter how many times you try. Understanding is not something you can beg for. It's something someone chooses to give. So, what do you do with that? You stop over-explaining yourself to people who have already decided not to understand you. You stop shrinking your feelings to make them comfortable. You stop translating your emotions into something easier for them to accept. And you start recognizing something important. The right people won't need 1,000 explanations. They'll ask questions. They'll lean in. They'll say things like, help me understand. They won't rush to judge you. They won't twist your words. They won't make you feel like your feelings are a problem. They'll care enough to understand even when it's not easy, because understanding is a choice. It's effort. It's patience. It's presence. And the people meant for you will choose it. Not perfectly, but genuinely. And that makes all the difference. So no, communication isn't the real problem. Understanding is. And once you experience real understanding, you'll never settle for just being heard again. You'll want to be felt. You'll want someone who doesn't just listen to your words, but connects to your heart. And that kind of connection, it's rare. It's real. And it's worth waiting for. And most importantly, You deserve that. Always. Thank you for sitting with me today and really thinking about what it means to be understood. Remember, it's not about talking more. It's about connecting deeper. It's about finding the people who will choose to see you. Not just your words, but your heart, your fears, your joys, the real you. So as you go through your week, pay attention. Notice who listens. Notice who tries to understand, not just respond. And give yourself permission to step away from those who can't. Because you deserve that kind of connection. You deserve to be truly felt. If this episode spoke to you, share it with someone who might need to hear it too. And don't forget, understanding starts with patience, presence, and sometimes the courage to show up as your true self. Until next time, keep being real, keep being you, keep choosing understanding, both for yourself and others.